Like milk, we're going to spoil. You're watching N9000 Plus's movie review of Avengers Endgame, the spoiler edition.
You really have to talk about the beginning of the film. I mean, it starts with some stuff with Clint and showing how he lost his entire family, which is brutal.
It was.
Yeah, his transition to become Ronin had to be something major. Like how we saw with Ant-Man and the Wasp, we saw the consequences of Civil War. We saw the ankle bracelet that he was wearing, and even though he was able to be with his family, after everything that Thanos had did in Infinity War, we saw the repercussions of what happened to him. Ronin in the comics is not an actual character. It's just a mantle that's passed from character to character. It's like one of those plot devices where it's like, we don't know how to evolve the character. The character has gotten stale. We don't know what direction to go. Well, this is unlike the character, so what happens? We give him the masked ninja Ronin and be able to do things that would normally do. And that's what we see with Clint. We see him do things that he would not normally do.
5 years later, immediately the film jumps, which I was actually really glad they did because that gave us so much of a new world. It's very easy to lose track of the fact that this is Earth throughout this film. It's very easy to almost forget that because of what things look like. And it's perfectly exemplified, in my opinion, by the Scott Lang character popping out of the quantum realm and having no idea it's been 5 years and anything has happened. And he's walking down the streets of his neighborhood and it's a trash heap. And
it really is. Because they're missing all those people.
Yeah. And missing posters plastered all over the streets, all over the poles and everything.
And then finding his name on the monument.
Yeah, on the monuments. And then coming across his daughter, 5 years older.
To quote Carrie Fisher, this movie's about family. Iron Man's got a daughter. He and Pepper have a daughter, and she's great in this film. Scott Lang, his realization is finding his daughter. Clint's motivation, his family, his wife and his children. It added so much depth to what our characters were doing, particularly with Iron Man, because he doesn't just die, he leaves behind a child, a small child, 4 maybe?
To see the scene when Iron Man dies, that was rough. All of us, plus my husband, went to see that, and we were all crying.
Oh yeah, I heard several in the theater, like sobbing.
It was literally silent in the theater when we went, and all you could hear were the people crying. And I think that's because they basically compounded not only his death, but all the people that loved him. Because Rhodey showed up first, and then Spider-Man, and then his wife, you know? And all they had to do was put his daughter in there, and then it would have been the trifecta, you know?
She wasn't on a battlefield.
No, she wasn't this time.
The big Thorowski, dad bod Thor.
I was going to say that I think that was my favorite. Honestly, even more than just the dad bod, seeing how he was dealing with all of his loss. Because everybody lost a lot, but I feel like Thor lost the most.
Well, he lost his home, and then someone snaps his damn fingers and half of his people die.
Yeah, so he's only really left with a quarter when you think about it.
Because there was half of them already, and then the half that was left.
Yeah. Whoever survived Hela during Ragnarok, and then all of a sudden, not long afterwards, Thanos attacked, so half of that again, and then the snap.
So maybe an eighth. Who knows? Maybe an eighth left of...
I am happy, though, that the new Asgard was in Norway, because in the comics, when it came to New Asgard, it was just a floating city right above Bronxton, Oklahoma. That's all they did. That was the whole siege story. Yeah, because a lot of comic book readers were like, over Oklahoma.
Thor going from very naive kind of and self-centered to more evolved and kind of more in touch with his feelings kind of Thor. But then we also have Tony, who was kind of closed off as a character. And what we saw in this movie was that he was hurt by Cap. So I think it was emotional for him. But to see this evolution, and I think that's also what made it so much harder to see him die. Yeah. That he went from this like self-centered, egotistical, I'm always right kind of person to still having a little bit of that. Obviously, he's not going to stop being who he is, but more in a way where we really see how much he cares about other people.
Well, and his death is also, this doesn't help. It's pretty brutal.
It is pretty
His sacrifice to save everybody really destroys his body.
Biggest surprise in this one was how Thanos reacted differently than what we typically see of a villain. Yeah. He snuck in and he just shot them down. In a lot of movies, we see, I'm here to defeat you. And he's like, no, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just going to sneak. Yeah, they don't need to know. I want to sneak in and I want to shoot you guys because you are just bugs and you're annoying me. The scene of all the powerful women, I just didn't expect them to do something like that. And there are so many powerful women in these movies. To me, it didn't feel over the top.
At first, I didn't even realize it was just like the women of Marvel.
Yeah.
So basically, if you've forgotten or for some reason are watching this without watching the film first, they're passing the gauntlet around trying to keep it from Thanos. But once someone has it, like all of his forces go after that person. Spider-Man gets it and he turns on instant kill mode, which is super fun because it's a callback to Homecoming. But he's overwhelmed very quickly, and then Captain Marvel shows up and takes it from him. But then like, oh, she has help. They're all women.
Yep, and they're all badass women. Man. Oh my gosh.
This movie really looks wonderful. It would have been very easy because a lot of the city was, well, the world, the universe was kind of trashed 5 years later. It would have been really easy to have things look dirty and gross. And even though there are areas that had that like surface level component, just the film was shot so well and everything looked so nice. It was just really impressive.
Yeah. And even the parts that were kind of grimdark, like the ending war scene, of course, they all looked like rough. Yeah. They worked way better than some other movies that I would say.
All the story elements I think needed to be there. I'm sure there are things you could trim and it wouldn't really change it too much, but they were pretty relevant. The only thing I can think of is I felt like there were a few moments of levity that were maybe misplaced. Just a little bit here and there. There's a whole thing with Thor where, I mean, we just talked about it. He lost everything and he has let himself go completely. He doesn't want to deal with any of this. He is clearly fearful. He shouldn't have been the one to go back to Asgard to get the stone. I understand why they picked him, but you know, man, that didn't make a lot of sense to me. But
I feel like they were rubbing salt in his wound.
A little bit. So he's there in the place that is going to most make him think about these things, around the people that he lost. His mother, for example, Jane, who I don't know if it ever mentioned that if she was gone by the snap, but they're not together. So that's loss either way. And so he's there and he's really struggling to maintain his mental composure. Yeah. And there's a couple little Rocket Raccoon like quips during it. And I'm just like...
And then he smacks him in the face.
Yeah, slaps him in the face, snap out of it.
And I had forgotten that his mom was raised by witches. Because I think they did mention it before. I'd just forgotten that she was like that. And I love that she was not fooled by his hiding.
There were moments where maybe we could have pulled that back a little bit.
Yeah. I agree with you. They could have pulled it back, but I don't know that we could handle as much if they pulled it back, just because like the scene with Scott Lang and his taco, like we probably didn't necessarily need that scene, but I think they had to break it up. For me, I cried a lot through this movie. So I personally needed to like laugh a little bit while I was crying. So, and I feel like the places where they kept it going, it was necessary because the whole section after Tony Stark is dead is pretty somber. As a whole, again, like we said in the spoiler-free review, over 9,000.
I said this in the last video. It was a celebration of not just of Marvel, but of the MCU. And honestly, the best thing it did, Stan Lee's in it. Yeah. And if you didn't have Stan Lee in it, it doesn't feel like a Marvel film.
Because now we have to move forward without him in it, and it's going to feel completely different.
I'm just glad that they had that done for this film.
Before he passed, and that was just great. So we are really officially starting Phase 4 without a Stan Lee, which is, for me, crazy. Like,
I mean, it was a matter of time, realistically, but still, it
still kind of throws you off. They didn't do End Stinger, but I really love the way they culminated the characters with the signatures and everyone, like the main...
Yeah, there was no mid-credits or post-credits scene. I had heard there was an audio stinger at the very end, and I was pleasantly surprised to find the sounds of Tony hammering out his first suit in that cave, and I just thought that was a really good way to end it. The final thing you get from Phase 3 is Tony making his suit, which is how everything started.
So as we said in the beginning, and in the middle, and now again at the end, this was the spoiler review. Hope you enjoyed it. We would love for you to comment, give the video a like, and if you haven't subscribed, now's a good time to do that. And this is a spoiler discussion, so this is a safe place for you to talk about it and express your feelings and maybe vent a little bit about the different things that we saw. Those of you who haven't seen the movie and you're already this far, it's too late now. You're in it now. So just comment, like, subscribe, and we'll see you at the next movie.